Silverstone was, Silverstone was the first kind of major incident. So they raced wheel to wheel throughout the season. Max had given up. Lewis had given kind of position every time. He'd given up. This was the first time where Lewis, I think he went out on track and he did not give up the position.
Yeah.
The reason he did that was obviously he took pole. In the sprint race, Max overtook him at the beginning. And this is the weird part, because Lewis this year, the amount of times he got pole and he's lost the position just in the first half of the season.
Yeah,
he's done it like four times, which is very, very surprising. And that obviously throughout the sprint race we saw Max built up like a 2-second gap and he was comfortable ahead. There was no Lewis wasn't really, because Lewis I think was quicker on the first and last sector, but in the second sector Max would build up enough of a gap that Lewis couldn't hurt him by the time they got up to the third sector, because it's the twisty part of the track. But in terms of the accident, I think Lewis is more to blame for it. I think Max goes onto the inside. He blocks Lewis's kind of access to the inside going into cups. Lewis goes fully on the inside, and then obviously Lewis can't hit the apex. But I think like at that point Lewis was fairly alongside him. So you think my thought process is like, you have to give the other driver enough space. See, this is where the argument of they change the rules a bit from you have to give the other drivers enough space to, if it's your corner, do whatever you want.
Yeah, that conversation is so weird. I can never keep up with that one.
So I think it has to be the case where you have to give the other driver space. You can't just like, Max has done it a few times this year. Lewis did it in Monza where he just squeezed him out. Max did it a few times this year, like he did it way more. You have to give the other driver space. You can't just squeeze him out. This is what happened literally. It was Max. Max was obviously a bit ahead. Like Lewis got up to him, and then going into the braking zone, Max was a bit ahead, and then Max should have given Lewis the space.
Which one? What
in Silverstone. And then what happened is Max hit, and obviously like he crashed. It was like 51 Gs, incredibly big crash. I think the way Red Bull dramatized it afterwards, and like I did not like that. I did not like the way they portrayed it, because then they made it seem like, oh my god, like Lewis didn't know obviously like what happened. He's celebrating, it's the 8th time he's won his home Grand Prix, so obviously he's going to be really happy.
I'm pretty sure.
He's obviously going to be really happy. You can say like his celebration was a bit like overboard, fair enough, but he didn't know at that point. He was told Verstappen's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So
as far as he knows, Verstappen's fine. So.
I do understand that point. I don't like the comments, like the Max comments, the Jos comments, the helmet comments, all the Christian coming out was like, that's a technical foul. But you don't know what a technical foul is. You've never driven a car.
He wasn't fast enough to get into Formula 1.
I know.
That's the unrelated one. That is our unrelated link of the day. I'm sure we'll probably come up with a few others. But Martin Brundle doing, I think it was his grid walk, but for whatever reason he's talking to Christian Horner.
Oh.
And I think it's the first ever Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
Yeah.
If I'm making this up, then I'm making this up and I've forgotten.
No, it's true.
But I think it's the first ever Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. And Horner has a little dig at Martin, just like completely unrelated, shame you didn't get to drive this or something like this, whatever it was. And then Brundle just comes in. I'm not even going to say what he said. But like, just watch the clip. It's probably only 20 seconds, but it's definitely worth the watch.
He roasts Christian so badly.
Brundle's just so funny. He's a legend. He's a legend. But
Lewis gets a 10-second penalty. Charles leads basically like 50 laps of the race, and then
Charles,
on like lap 50, Lewis overtakes him. You can see the difference between his defense and Max's defense. Charles goes out and gives Lewis enough space to make the corner.
Yeah.
Obviously, he goes out and then comes back in. He loses position.
He gets a bit of oversteer. He has to go wide. But also, to be fair, you do have to mention Lewis was a lot more cautious that time.
But the difference is Lewis was not as far inside, because Charles from the beginning gave him enough space, whereas Max closed off the inside, so Lewis had to go all the way to... Lewis knew obviously that if I don't overtake Max here, I've lost the race.
Yeah.
From the sprint race. So he knew he had to overtake, and he goes to the inside, and then I think it was... I personally think like Max should have given more space, but Lewis should not have gone like... He obviously saw Max is not going to give the space. Based on the rules, it was like fairly Max's corner, so he should have slowed down a bit. Especially going into like cops is like so quick, you kind of have to be a bit more cautious.
Yeah, he should have been a bit more cautious. And I think what would have been interesting is if Lewis was on the outside and he, somehow... Because if he was on the outside, I'm pretty sure Max would have either overshot the corner.
Oh, he would definitely.
Like, he would have been ahead. And what I mean by overshot the corner is he just steams off and then goes on the runoff and then keeps the position.
That's
rather
what
than
he always
crashing
does.
into him.
See,
but, I don't know. It would have been interesting if they made contact, but Max was on the inside. That conversation would have been interesting.
I don't, like Max. Max keeps doing like. If it was the other way around, Max would have pushed Lewis all the way off track, and Lewis would have given him position and gone all the way off track. This is what Max has been doing all season long, where whenever he's fighting with Lewis, he just push Lewis completely off track and just go ahead.
Yeah.
And that annoys me. That really annoys me because it's not like. For instance, when you look Fernando against Lewis at Hungary, he defended really well, and he defended. Lewis complained, but Lewis obviously there was nothing to really complain about.
Yeah.
But as in when you look at Abu Dhabi and Perez defending against Lewis, defended incredibly well. But Verstappen's defense is just push him off track. I think if he does that, I think he generally has to get a penalty.
Yeah, I'm so annoyed that, when we get onto Monza, we'll get onto Monza, but just in general, I hate this culture of, also, yeah, we need to mention in stereo, people driving off at turn 5, the long right-hander, bottom of the hill, after the second DRS zone. Perez was shoved off by Lando gets 5 seconds. Perez then shoves, I think, 2 other drivers
Gets
off.
10 seconds.
And gets 5 seconds for each penalty as well. Obviously, this was onto grass and onto gravel, but you could argue that corner, what do you expect? You're being run out. I mean, that's what people say. I still think you should give a car's width, and
but
I don't know. It's just the rule of not giving room is so annoing. And
I think you have to give room.
You have to give room.
But at the same time, I think if you're going into the corner, I think with Lando, he was already so far ahead that, and then Perez is just kind of late breaking and just going wee it's his corner, and then they basically gave him a penalty. So I don't necessarily agree with that one, but the Perez one, I don't agree with what they did, but at least they were consistent across the board. If you did this, you get to get penalty.
Yeah,
After Silverstone, this is when the FIA just went crazy. Honestly, at this point, Lewis got a 10-second penalty. He won. The whole incident was Lewis essentially won. He should have gotten a harsher penalty.
The key thing about this as well is he was given the penalty mid-race. It's not he won the race, then got given a penalty that kept him first. He was given the penalty, and then he went back and overtook Leclerc right at the end of the win.
I think people are just they're just they didn't want Lewis to win.
Yeah, they just took the 51G to heart. They're like, oh, he's in hospital, and the Red Bull media circus was mad, obviously. So Horner's comparing racial abuse to just general abuse Max gets, which is ridiculous because every driver gets abuse. Sure, some get more than others. But racial abuse is something that only Lewis gets, and it's in a different category. If you want to accuse them of bad driving and all of this and abuse them, all abuse is wrong. But if you're going to say that, you're criticising their driving. How are you going to, so you're just going to call them a nigger and get away with it? What's that to do with the driving, realistically? So I'd say it's ridiculous. Max was also, if you look at the tweet Max put out after Silverstone, and then the tweet Lewis put out after Monza, they're very different. And it just, I don't know. You can tell subtly, the differences. Obviously, Lewis is more mature, he's older and all of that, but it's just, surely Red Bull's got a team of PR people that help Max run his Twitter and stuff this.
I think Red Bull's, they've always, Mercedes are a lot more kind of mature. Red Bull are just a bunch of kids. Whenever they don't get to go on the road, they're ah! They cry about it, literally. The point, they recreated it. They got Albon to go on track and recreate it.
Yeah.
Are you crazy? It's over. The race is over. Move on. That annoyed me so much to the point where they did this.